Hello students. Now today will be our last class for this chapter number 9, that is reproduction in animals. So in today's topic we are going to study one topic plus we are going to cover some questions. Okay, so the topic that we are going to study is metamorphosis. Metamorphosis is series of changes that larva undergoes to form an adult. So, as you will be knowing, let's see. That is, it gives, you can say, young ones to adults. So, the series of changes that the larva, this is the larva, small stage, undergoes to form an adult. These are the series. Okay, so this process is known as metamorphosis. Okay, now with the help of an example we are going to study about the process of metamorphosis in frog. We can say the life cycle. Here we have the life cycle of a silkworm. This you might have learnt in your class 6th and 7th when you have studied about silkworm in your chapter fibers and fabrics, right? So the new individuals which are born or hatched from eggs, they continue to grow till they become adult. So this is the egg, right? New individuals which are born or hatched from eggs, they continue to grow till they become adult. So in some animals the young ones may look very different from their adults. Like example, you can take the life cycle of a silkworm, that is the egg, then it comes the larva or the caterpillar stage. Then it develops into cocoon. This cocoon with developing moth, it is with the developing moth which gives to the female and male silkworm. I hope you are clear. That is the adult. So this you have studied in your class 6th and 7th. Then another example is the life cycle of frog. Frog is another such example. So observe the different stages of frog starting from the egg to the adult stage. So we find that there are three distinct stages. Three different stages are there, that is egg, tadpole, that is larva, and adult. Three different stages are there. Now, can you see that don't the tadpoles look so different from the adults? So, see this tadpole and this adult. Do they look similar? No, they look completely different. So, can you imagine that these tadpoles would someday become frogs also? Yes, they can be. Similarly, the caterpillar or pupa of silkworm looks very different from the adult moth, right? So the features that are present in adult are not found in these young ones. And then what happens to the tadpoles or caterpillars thereafter? You must have seen a beautiful moth emerging out of cocoon, right? You might have seen. So in the case of tadpoles also, they transform into adults who are capable of jumping and swimming. So these tadpoles also afterwards they transform into adults which are capable of jumping and swimming. And the transformation of the larva into an adult through drastic changes is called as metamorphosis. As I told you in the starting of this class, that metamorphosis is the process in which there is transformation of larva into an adult through drastic changes. And what about the changes that we observe in our body as we grow? We also have changes when we grow. So do you think we too undergo metamorphosis? In human beings, the body parts similar to those present in the adults are present from the time of birth, right? what happens in case of human beings? We already have the body parts in our childhood stage till we grow adult. So we stay parts are similar, they don't change, only just we grow in size and shape. But what happens in this process of metamorphosis? There is transformation of the larva into an adult through drastic changes, means totally they change in their structure, function, everything. So that's why they undergo metamorphosis. So that's all, that was the process of metamorphosis, which we can see in a silkworm and in the case of frog. Now there is one topic which is about test tube babies. You might also wonder what are test tube babies and how they are produced. So let's study about them. Now what happens that there was a question asked by Bojo and Paheli, which are given in your textbook. So they once told their so Bojo and Paheli's teacher once told them in the class that in some women's oviducts are blocked. In some women's oviducts, that is the fallopian tubes, they are blocked, due to which the sperms are unable to reach egg for fertilization. Right? So if fallopian tubes are blocked, how will the egg and sperm reach there for fertilization? So in such cases, that time these women are unable to bear babies. They can't bear the babies because the sperm cannot reach the egg for fertilization. So doctors, what do they do in such cases? In such cases, the doctors collect freshly released egg and sperm. They the sperm and egg that are released freshly, the doctors collect it and they keep them together for few hours. They keep them together for few hours in vitro condition in vitro conditions. That is, if we say for IVF, for in vitro fertilization, under vitro conditions, that is fertilization outside the body. So if the fertilization, so in vitro fertilization, this is, as I told you, in vitro conditions for few hours, which we term as in vitro fertilization, that is fertilization outside the body. So in case fertilization occurs, if the fertilization occurs and the zygote is formed, then that zygote is allowed to develop under similar conditions for about 8 weeks, right? So the zygote is allowed to develop for about 8 weeks and then it is placed in mother's uterus. Then it is placed in the mother's uterus and the complete development takes place in the uterus only. The complete development will take place in the mother's uterus and the baby is born like any other baby. The baby is always born like a normal baby and the babies born through this technique are called as test tube babies. The babies that are born through this technique, they are called as test tube babies. So this you can see here in the picture, it is a test tube baby. This is a type, this we call as test tube. In this the egg and sperm is kept. The freshly collected egg and sperm is kept inside this test tube, and if the fertilization occurs and if the zygote is formed, then this zygote is allowed to develop for 8 weeks and then it is placed in the mother's uterus. This is called as test tube babies. This term is actually misleading because babies cannot grow in test tube. These babies cannot grow in test tubes, but from that's why we tell but that time the term was given test tube babies for that. So this is what test tube babies. You might have heard about that, test tube babies. This is how they grow and develop and how are they produced. That if the oviducts of the women are blocked, and due to that the sperms will not able to reach the egg for fertilization. So that's why in such cases doctors collect the freshly released egg and sperm and they keep it in vitro conditions for few hours, so that we term as in vitro fertilization. So if that fertilization occurs, we call it as in vitro fertilization, that is fertilization outside the body. And if the zygote is formed, then it is allowed to develop for some under similar conditions for 8 weeks, and then it is placed in the mother's uterus, and then the baby is born like a normal baby. This is test tube babies. Now let's discuss some questions and answers. Basic conceptual questions. First is, what is fertilization, and give its two parts. You will be knowing it's simple. Fertilization is the fusion of male gamete with female gamete to form zygote. Types of fertilization, two types. External fertilization, that is fertilization outside the body. Internal fertilization is fertilization inside the body. External fertilization, if we can take the example of a frog, where they undergo fertilization in water, and internal fertilization is the fertilization that occurs in the female's body. Another right full form of IVF, as I told you just now, in vitro fertilization. Then, what are sexually transmitted diseases? Name a few. This question might be new for you. Sexually transmitted diseases are those diseases that spread through sexual contact. Means, if we are sexually in contact with one another, that time there are chances of the disease to spread. Example, AIDS. AIDS is a disease which is caused by the virus HIV. Human immunodeficiency virus causes AIDS. Then syphilis and gonorrhea. Okay, these are the diseases which spread through sexual contact. There are many other diseases. Then explain the life cycle of silkworm. It is simple. First egg develops into larva to pupa, and pupa to the adult silkworm. So with this, we complete the chapter of our science textbook, that is reproduction in animals. In the next class, we will start with the new chapter and you will be provided with your exercise of chapter number 9. Thank you and have a